All right, everything should be working now. I came on a few minutes ago, but my mic wasn't working. So hopefully my mic is working now. It looks like it's working anyways. Um, okay, well, let's switch up the screen and get down on it. Okay, so last year, for those unaware, I'll get to this in a minute, I put out 2 books that are available on Amazon. And one of those books talks about the one-page story aesthetic that I've been doing for the last 2 years. So the one-page story extravaganza, volume 1, little hardcover book. Oh, hi, Susanna. Welcome aboard. Thank you. Thank you, by the way. So this is a book collecting suggestions made by people. This one's fishes and whales. This one's almonds, vines, and toucan. 7 characters trapped in a pit of fear. All of these suggestions that came in from people I do these one-page stories of. And I crossed 700 over the holidays at the end of the year there for 2024. So I'm now working on an ongoing book and just focusing on that for the moment. But Volume 1, collecting the first parcel of those one-page stories, and I will get back to those very soon, has been out on Amazon. And so then, and you know, people are saying nice things. I appreciate that. So then I came out also last year, the second release, and we're going to do 2 releases a year. So that's the idea of how things are going to go. So the second release of last year was Alphabet Book, and as opposed to doing a larger narrative, still within a confined space, but as opposed to doing a larger narrative with lots of panels, lots of text, lots of story, Alphabet Book is more singular illustrations, and so you'll have really short stories, little short bits of business, and so not entirely remote, but at the same time you'll have, this is 2 panels, laughing, serious face, funny, not funny, you know, so it encapsulates a larger idea, but within a small amount of space. Forests. There's 2 images of a forest. It says an examination of how one Earth-based organism solicits new ideas for another by a process of symbiotic existence. Forest, you know, forest, trees, all the things that it offers. Get some friends, start a club, go out and have fun. So we're not talking about larger narratives so much as we are just ideas, visual ideas, and about story ideas encapsulated in a small amount of space. Getting an idea, here's somebody holding up a piece of chalk, there's somebody holding up a model of an airplane. So ideas get made. Hey Lou, you want to see my dance moves? No thanks, Bob, not today. You 2 boys got some choring to do. That's the whole story. So this is the same size as one-page story extravaganza as well, and so at the very beginning of this stream, you saw the cover. We're just waiting for approval right now for the second book to be put on Amazon, the second one-page extravaganza. So it'll be another 80-page collection of one-page stories. But what I'm trying to promote the idea of is, this is small collected stories. It's in a landscape format. This is more of a story ideas collection, and that can be developed more. Sometimes they are, like there's 4 panels to this page. You fill in the story as the reader, so inspected. But what does that mean? Is the page inspected? Is he an inspector? Is he inspecting something? So the reader generally fills in ideas like that. This is a bit about Jack Chambers, so it's a more developed piece. It's the journey, not the destination. So all of these, the reason it's called an alphabet book, it's an alphabetary. Every page is a different letter of the alphabet. And on Patreon, the letter X is there. There's no X in the alphabet book. So for those that are interested in that, they can find that extra page on Patreon for free. Susanna says you don't need to date it, just be happy making what you like. Um, yeah, I'm pretty much enjoy creating each day, and there's nothing to say that we can't find some facility for self-expression on a daily basis. Now, what I got written here is easy directions to approach storytelling. So, in accordance with what I've just laid out with these two books that are already on Amazon, and the next one that's going to be is being worked on. So you've got single image, and text. Okay, so just having a static image and applying some text to that allows you to approach it in different ways. And all of these things have factors that can be utilized so that you can have different kinds of text, different amounts of development. Like you can just have a caption, right? You can have some dialogue. You can have some prose, and you can have some narration, right? And so all these different sort of story applications that you can put here give you different avenues of taking that limited amount of space and applying that to story. So here is La Luna, the moon, and there's not an awful lot going on to this. It's just an examination of the moon, and here's the different phasic cycles of the moon and some fun little bits of business around it. But what that does is, that caption just lets you fill in the rest of it on your own. Whereas here's a whole bunch of narration for a single static image. Okay? And what that narration gives you is this larger idea for what is largely a singular image, even though there's a whole bunch more. Hi, Linda, welcome aboard. So here's this page. It says not scary, despite the fact it shows skeletons. What is it? There's more to it. This is a static image that's chopped up into a whole bunch of smaller aspects of it and overlaid one on the other. But it says notes on perceptual realism or perception as part process of memory. It's in relation to a thesis written by Jack Chambers, an artist here in that was here in Canada, here in London, about how when we try to remember a moment, we try to capture that visually. You're hard pressed to. So he did a painting called Olga and Mary Visiting, and what happens in Olga and Mary Visiting is that there's these two ladies sitting on a couch having a conversation, but then there's an extra face floating in the page of a person sipping tea. So it's just the hand and the teacup and the mouth. And there's another extra face for the other lady that's just sort of floating a foot and a half off of her form, that's just got her going as though she's the one talking. And in addition to that, there's a hand, an additional hand holding the teacup. So what he's trying to do with these extra little representations of facets of the existing image is that he's trying to show that a memory of a moment of these two ladies sitting on a couch chatting with each other. We don't just remember we sat and chatted with each other. We remembered, it was funny, and we laughed, and we drank some tea, and I remember just listening with my teacup in my lap as they talked and told me about a story. So all these different facets in that moment are represented, and it's called perceptual realism. So it's not just that, it's a very realistic approach to art that he took visually. So it's not just that, it's how we perceive reality, how we perceive our memory. So that's what this refers to. One. What does one mean? So again, a simple caption, a simple piece of text. Ornate, same thing. But then we get a piece of this. On the good foot. And here's a person running through a city street. Little ornate approach visually, but it's a single line. Whereas paradigm, you've got a developed story. These are people it's pretty declarative, it's pretty self-explanatory, but there's stories in all these people, and when you look at this, it might make you want to try to identifiably understand that there's a story in all these people. You know, prediculate. It means to yawn. Yawn, yawn. Do it. Prediculate already. And of course, it says it means to yawn, and the character drawn is not yawning. So you can use a single image with all these different literary approaches to it in order to develop it in different ways, right? And you know, there's another example that I showed earlier, which is un momento, s'il vous plaît. Okay, here we go. So this is a page called Committed. Now, Committed is 2 panels, and of these 2 panels, there's 2 different ideas. This person is committed to writing. He's a writer, he's committed. This person is being helped into a jacket, a confinement jacket, because they're being committed. And same word, 2 different meanings, so 2 different larger ideas that can be examined more fully from a single piece of text. So we can do things like that. But at the same time, conversely, the word crowded in correlation to all of these people overlaid on top of this physical space, or this sort of overview of this landmass, and all of these people they're so numerous that they don't all even fit on here, because it's too crowded, you know, or maybe the image is too crowded, or so the subjective meaning of this thing really comes from what the viewer gets out of it, as opposed to the more implied meaning, which is what I'm setting up in this one. So you can use multiple images or multiple panels in a singular image for your stories. So I'm going to say multiple image, right, as the second one. So, you know, 2 or more. Or, so we'll say 2 or more panels, or we'll say 2 or more overlapping images. So and then with text, right? So with that in mind, the idea there is that you've got the opportunity to develop things on an additional level than just the simple, straightforward Bob eats fish, and here's a picture of a guy, Bob, who's chewing on you know, a fish, right, like a bear, okay, that works. But you know, you can have you know, you could also use the same body of text of Bob eats fish, but then you can apply it and have that image of Bob eating, you know, gnawing on a fish, you know, in the background, but laid over top of that image, you can have a body of fish swimming across the page. And so, you know, but rather than have him gnawing on a fish, you can have him using knife and fork for a fish dinner. So you can take the idea of part and process of the fish dinner, you know, and the fish swimming in the ocean. The 2 of those things together, and it relates a larger narrative. So you can apply multiple images or multiple overlapping images to do that, right? And then I would say that the third part of it is what we talked about, that I sort of tried to example with a one-page story, is that one-page story is generally a number of panels and images together with text, which is more along the lines of narrative or dialogue. Now, that's not to say that that's like always the case, because one of the suggestions in this book was one word one image, or one panel, one image, one word. And so I had to figure out how to tell a story with one panel, one image, one word. And so what I came up with was run. And I drew a crowd of people running in all kinds of different directions. So one panel, there's the frame of reference. One image, here's all these people interconnected running in different directions. And there's one word. But what it sort of, the implication is, the questions that ideally it has the reader ask, and the questions that it would have the reader ask is, why are they all running? Why are they all running in different directions? What's the larger story therein? So you can utilize a limited amount of space, like we've talked about in the previous two, to imply a larger narrative and have the reader fill those in. So don't discourage yourself or dismiss yourself. I don't feel that I have the competency to draw repetitive characters from panel to panel to panel. Well, that's understandable for people to have challenges with that, but you don't necessarily need that, right? And the approach that you take can be used a little more abstractly, right? So then the multiple panels, the multiple images, this is where I would say, this is where the multiple panels, images in a layout, right? Like a formatted layout. So this is where you've got 6 panels, 9 panels, 9 panels, however many, 4, 6, 8, 9, whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter the number of panels that you need to utilize on your page for your story. Here's a page that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And it's an express amount of dialogue to regale the fact that here's a fella at a restaurant, here's a dish being prepared, here's somebody eating it, and somebody else with a spoon saying, mm-mm. And then here's someone making a sour face because they requested a sandwich that was to be made with sweet pickles, and what he was brought was a sandwich made with sweat pickles because the waiter had wrote down the order incorrectly, and the cook made it took that very literally, so he tried to make a sandwich made with sweat pickles. What are sweat pickles? Pickles that have been sweated on? I don't know. That doesn't matter. We're just having fun. But this is a 4-panel page, right? And then down below, we have these 4 panels here of these different city scenes, but then cascading across those, we have this character falling through the air, right? And the dialogue, the narration, is about what happened in this moment that relates to this character falling, and all of these ambulances and fire trucks and police and everything all gathering about the issue at hand because this building's on fire, and this fella falls from the building, and he gets up when he lands. He's fine, despite falling from a great height, which is a possibility. But then it says, the last panel, or the last narrative panel says, you just had to be there. Because people would have a hard time believing that somebody could land from that height and get up and dance around. So it's a different style of storytelling between the 2 pages, but my point is that using multiple panels and images together with, along with the text, you don't have to have just a static approach. Well, I'm going to do this one with 1 panel. Okay, now I'm going to do this one with 2 panels. Now it could be 2 panels like, there's a page here where I've got, it's called Funny Not Funny. This is 2 panels. Funny, not funny, right? This is 2 different illustrations of a forest and a bit of text in relationship to how we live in symbiosis with nature. But 2 different kinds of panels is my point, right? arguably a third frame of reference or a third panel connects these two together. So, you know, you can utilize different stylistic approaches to each of these storytelling ventures, and it all works. But letting yourself try it, like there's a 9-panel page in there called Earthbound, and not a lot of dialogue, just a letter on 7 of those 9 panels, that spells out Earthbound as you go through the panels. But it's about somebody falling from space and coming down to Earth. That's the entire narrative. Why did they come down to Earth from space? I don't know. I don't talk about that. And why? How is it they're able to come and do that and land on Earth and be fine? Again, it's for the reader. It's the moment of an idea like that, the moment of a story concept allows you to, as the reader, to find the difference. It allows you as the reader to find, whatever the larger narrative may well be. So the multiple page panels, this is also with text, right? So then the easy directions is to approach storytelling is the other part that I would suggest, right? So this is, the page itself, okay? And then this is the idea part. Now, you can express your idea. You can express your main idea visually. So this goes beyond, by the way, for those that might consider that I just really am focused on sequential storytelling as comics. This goes beyond that. This allows us to do page illustration or a couple of panels of illustration with an idea, or 4 or 5. But it doesn't necessarily has to be 4, 6, 8, 9 multiple panels with dialogue like a sequential layout would be in a comic. So you can express your main idea visually. You can express your main idea textually. Okay, and so that's the visual with text, the textual with visual, and then the third part is you can make the reader fill in the larger story, the larger narrative, by suggestion in 1 or 2. So encouraging the reader to ask, if you got a picture again of somebody eating a plate of food, and then there's fish that are visually overlaid that are flying across the image, and I think that when you say Bob eats fish, now we're pretty direct. Bob is eating fish. Bob, here's the fish that symbolically represents the thing that's on his plate that he's eating. So that's a straightforward idea. Whereas with the number 3 approach, if you've got the person eating their dish, of food, and then you've got the fish flitting over top, and all you write is the word dinner, maybe even with a question mark, dinner, the reader fills in that difference. The reader would look at that and go, I guess he's having fish for dinner. And it becomes an unconscious direction for people. Why does it just say dinner and there's a person eating food? Oh, there's fish. It's his fish dinner. He's eating fish for dinner. It makes a reader work and invest a little bit in a moment, and lets them examine and lets them examine the elements that you've put inside of the image. in the words, and lets them try to interpret that as best they can in their own way. And it's not to say that the next person looks at that and goes, with dinner, the question mark, and they say to themselves, oh, I like steak. So not only is the reader investing in that moment of potential story idea being expressed, guy eating fish, but then the reader is probed one level deeper to that, and said to themselves that they have a preference for an alternative meal. So now they've taken the visual story as represented, the visual story as prefaced, and they've invested themselves into it more deeply. And optimally, you're going to come across readers that look at your story in that way, and that's more of a beneficial interaction for them. They get more from that because of the fact that it let them invest themselves for a minute. It lets them make more of your story than you initially present. And that connection from a reader, in all honesty, makes them enjoy it and appreciate the experience of reading more. So if you're able to facilitate that in your storytelling, and it's a fun thing to challenge oneself with, draw a person, in a canoe. Okay, so here's a person paddling in a canoe on the water, and what you write above that static image is, I wish I had a car. And so what the reader does and gets from that, and what the reader may well invest in that, of course every reader is going to subjectively approach it differently. So the first reader, what they would get from that is, this person's using a canoe because they don't have a car. Whereas the next reader looks at that and goes, man, I wish I had a car right now. They personalize the experience and say, yeah, I wish I had a car, at least I'm not rowing around in a canoe. Or the next reader sees that and goes, where do you live that you can use a canoe instead of a car? So each of those extrapolations of the idea that the reader has, those interpretations they have of the presented idea, each of those readers have brought their own self to the story, and that's honestly something that you can't do for them, even when you lay it all out. And Mary paddles a canoe because she doesn't own a car. And where Mary lives, there's enough waterways around the town that she can take those waterways in her little canoe to get to where she needs to do to do her weekly shopping. And you can lay all this narrative out. But when we do that, when we lay out all that narrative, what we're really doing is just presenting this is the story, as opposed to sometimes allowing those potential opportunities of dinner, ? Or I wish I had a car, So that it's a fun way to look at the idea of these ideas, and of course the big trick is, how do we take the visual components and the textual components, and how do we present our ideas? Like, how do we bring that forward to say, here you go, reader? And we can do that with these different page layouts, but we can also, sorry, that's not even in panel. I apologize. There you go. So we can do that with these different page layouts, but we can also do that by trying different means in order to present those ideas. Relying on the visual part, relying on the text part, suggesting the idea, and then of course, the fusion mind frame. I'll move that up. Fusion of words and pictures, the visual and the textual. The fusion of those two different things used to tell the story like in a direct way, to tell the direct story on the page for the reader. So, when I draw the picture of Mary in the canoe, and I do this long-winded explanation about Mary lives in a town where she has enough waterways that she can use the canoe instead of owning a car. She just wishes she had a car rather than all this paddling. That direct story presented for the reader is what I'm referring to when I talk about that clear fusion of words. And that's where we get more into the more pronounced sequential application of the more pronounced storytelling with the multiple panels, right, laid out from one to the next to the next to the next, that tells a fusion of those two. Here's a Cyclops that says, no dogs, I ain't even, I just know there's some fool playing at stealing my oranges. And in our next panel is these two kids, and the one says, quickly, I've almost got it. The other kids won't let us in a clubhouse if we don't get one. I think he sees us. And in the next shot goes back to our Cyclops, who's standing above the forest that these kids are just underneath grabbing the giant oranges. Yo, you had best get to stepping. And run, Timmy, I've got one. And so here she is with this rather large orange. And Timmy goes, yay! And they run off. And we've already suggested the external narrative on this page by saying, the other kids won't let us in the clubhouse if we don't get one. So because of that motivation, they've snuck into this Cyclops' garden to steal one of his oranges, so that's preceding our story, that's before it, and what follows the story is the fact that they're going to present this orange to the other kids and be allowed in the clubhouse. So we are giving a direct story that is confined within the panels. The visual and the textual part is direct about what's happening in each panel. Here's the Cyclops saying his thing. Here's the kids doing their thing. Here's the Cyclops saying his thing. Here's the kids busting a move, right? But we've also allowed for, within that text, to have those explanative elements that lets the reader understand there's a before and an after in this story. So whereas in a page where we've got similar panel layout, side by side by side by side, what this is a television commercial about Bella Rocks being a rock and roll star, just as much, if not more, as a movie star. And here it's soliciting all of Bella's You all right? Corbin's over there sneezing. So here's this page, here's this layout of this advertisement about Bela Lugosi has a rock and roll career, and here Bela Lugosi is, they're promoting his album of his songs, and all of them are related to something to do with blood or teeth or, just general vampirism. So it's kind of dumb. And there's a fun little moment in there where I have him covering the song Hot Blooded. It's a tune from, I think, the 70s or 80s. But he's doing it as a duet with Josh Groban. That was for Lori. And then we get to, here is a direct conversational piece between the bartender and Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken being the main character or the actor in The Shining, as opposed to Jack Nicholson in this case. So it's just having a little fun with retconning there, right? But it's a direct dialogue story, right? Doesn't worry about anything before or after, just we're in and of the moment. Where, because the whole suggestion is, it's a spooky story of Christopher Walken ordering a beer and drinking it. And the joke inside this is that he never drinks it. So I lay this out that he's thirsty, but however, these ladies over here, they're dancing. I'll get to my beer in a minute, so he's off to go and to dance with the ghost ladies. Just because. This is a montage page, a montage of images, but what's laid over top of this montage of images is dental advice as provided for us by vampires. And the suggestion, of course, is vampires giving dental advice. So it's a literal, interpretation of vampires giving dental advice, where the last page, Christopher Walken goes for a drink, says nothing about putting him in the context of The Shining in place of Jack Nicholson. It says nothing about ghosts or spookiness or any of that business. I just think it's funny, the idea of Christopher Walken saying spooky, so that's why I did it. But we're talking about different approaches, a different type of fusing the elements in each of those stories in order to present different ways for the reader to interact and to engage. So as far as it goes for getting that idea across, my suggestion, of course, is to play with that and to allow yourself to approach that in different ways. So again, like when I say, you can use two panels, you can do them side by side, one above the other, overlapping one another. The principal idea is two visual images within two frames of reference. You don't have to have borders on them. You don't have to have a border on your single panel. You can have a border on your single panel. When you got your multiple images, how you arrange those, it's entirely up to you. But the visual part and the story part, as presented, is pretty, I would say it's pretty much the secondary part of approaching storytelling. How you use your words and how you use your pictures is the second part, because the main part is thinking about how do I express my idea and how do I want to approach expressing the idea. Do I want to use words in order to express the idea? Do I want to use the visuals with either no words or very little words? Do I want to use, and that's where you start getting into implying, do I want to imply a larger story, or do I want to apply a direct story? And then of course what comes after that is, what do I need to do that? So how many panels, how many pictures? Thinking about the ideas first, and a good way to go about that is that if you have a fun idea, write it down. If you have a random notion, keep something like the one-page suggestion book that I have and scribble those in there, like this, so that you've got all of these anecdotes or pieces of dialogue or whatever it might be scribbled someplace that's handy, someplace that you're not going to lose, someplace that you're going to keep a hold of, so that what kind of thing do I want to draw today? What kind of thing do I want to try out today? Open your book, grab something, and don't necessarily worry too much about what it is that you grab. Apply yourself to any old random idea in and of the moment, if you're sitting down to develop that further. Or if you're feeling hot and ready to go, you've come across an idea and you've jot that idea down and you're immediately right into, how do I design this out as a page, as an image? go for it, right? There's no right or wrong way whether to use an old one or a new one. It's just a case of allowing yourself the opportunity to develop one, allowing yourself the opportunity to, see what you can make of that, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah. I thought I'd talk a bit about this today. I've got, yesterday I showed the old how to draw stories with words and pictures, and focusing on the pictures part. But this is part of a number of different notes that I'm going to be presenting here on storytelling approaches to ideas and story in general, or larger developments, like breaking things down into an act and looking at all these different facets of it. But rather than getting complex, I just thought, in relationship to how I've been talking about, doing things bit by bit by bit, as opposed to just you're worrying about the finish line before you've started with the short steps at the beginning. Not everybody has to lay stuff out. Not everybody has to overly think about things. There are people out there in the world that can just pick up a piece of paper and away they go, and that's great. But there are also people that need some sort of prolapse period of time in order to take those ideas and develop them up. And there is in that some measure of expectation for a more polished approach, and that's fine. I mean, it's the same. It's what works for you. Some people like to rough it out. Some people just like to go right down and start putting it on the surface. Some people like to try numerous examinations of roughing it out and finding the one that works for them best. And other people would prefer to just go with the flow. There's no, and I'm being really superlative. I'm going from one extreme to the other. I'm going from this far off example to this far off example. But there's a million different variations on all these things in between. And it's really just about what works for you and how you sit down and feel comfortable in your own expression. So you can have a person sitting right beside you who doesn't work the same way at all. And that person that's right beside you that doesn't work the same way at all might finish before or after you. One is not right or wrong more so than the other. Both of them are just your working processes. So there's no point in comparing yourself to or trying to keep up with the Joneses, because at the end of the day, let's say you and the person beside you are working on the same idea. I say this on a regular basis, but I really stand by this. The two of you side by side are not going to produce the same thing. You're just not. The totality of you is a very different experiential creature than the totality of the person beside you. So, there it is. So anyways, I just thought I'd try to present these ideas today for whoever may well watch this video. I haven't drawn in many visual notes to go along with this today, but this will be in our the how to tell stories using words and pictures, focusing on the story part of it. So, and eventually I think I will collect these into some kind of publication if it helps people out. But in the meantime, for now, this is a fun place to dialogue with people and to again share whatever things, whatever ideas, and whatever mistakes that I've made along the way, and to save you that, and to at the same time encourage to you to develop your own storytelling and your own self-expression, and with whatever meager things I can put across. So yeah, I think that it's a short one. It's a short one today, folks, but I think that's going to be about it for me. Again, I encourage people to try any of these things out. If there's anything I can do, or anything that you want to send me a message, or in the comments, or a direct message, or whatever, if I can help in any way, let me know. But in the interim, I hope you go out there and give it a try. Okay? Corbin has miraculously slept through this entire thing today, so that's kind of nice. Yesterday was noisy. That's it for me. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, everybody that came by. Thanks, Susanna. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Tim. Linda, the moderator with the mostest. And I'll be kicking around tomorrow as well. Hope to see you then. In the meantime, let's go make something. Okay. Bye for now, gang.